16 years, I mused, tracing the delicate brushstrokes of the kanji characters on the silk scroll. 16 years until I'm deemed worthy of becoming Mrs. Hiroki Tanaka. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. My fate had been sealed the day I was born. A neat little arrangement between two powerful families, a contract written in bloodlines and societal expectations. My worth, it seemed, was measured in my potential to solidify alliances and produce heirs. Growing up in the sprawling Sakamoto estate was like living in a cage. The gardens were meticulously manicured, the rooms adorned with priceless antiques, the servants ever present, their smiles as polished as the mahogany floors. Yet beneath the veneer of wealth and tradition, a chilling loneliness permeated the air. My mother, my only source of warmth in this cold, calculated world, had succumbed to a sudden illness when I was just 6. My father, consumed by his business empire, retreated further into his work, leaving me at the mercy of my stepmother, a woman whose smile was as sharp as a serpent's fang. "Anya, have you finished polishing Mako's shoes?" My stepmother's voice, sharp and brittle, cut through my thoughts. I stifled a sigh, setting aside the worn copy of The Tale of Genji I'd been trying to read. Another day, another chore. My stepmother, bless her petty heart, seemed to derive immense satisfaction from relegating me to the role of glorified servant. Cooking, cleaning, fetching, carrying. I was expected to cater to my half-sister's every whim, my own needs and desires conveniently forgotten. "Yes, stepmother," I replied, my voice carefully neutral. Years of practice had taught me the art of masking my emotions, of presenting a facade of obedience while my inner voice raged against the injustice. "Good," she said, her lips curving into a smirk. "And make sure her bath is prepared. She has a tea ceremony with the Yamamoto family this afternoon, and she must look her best." As if I needed reminding. Mako, the golden child, the embodiment of perfection, the one whose every accomplishment was met with lavish praise and extravagant rewards. Me, on the other hand, was the shadow, the afterthought, the one whose efforts were met with indifference, or worse, disdain. "Anya, where are my hairpins?" Mako's voice, a petulant whine, echoed from her room. I dutifully retrieved the ornate silver pins, placing them on her vanity table alongside the array of expensive cosmetics and perfumes. My own vanity, a small cracked mirror tucked away in a dusty corner of my room, reflected a girl whose beauty was as overlooked as her existence. "Thank you, Anya," Mako said, barely glancing up from her preening. "You may go now." I retreated to the kitchen, seeking solace in the familiar warmth of the hearth and the comforting chatter of the servants. They were my family, my confidants, the ones who saw the sadness behind my carefully constructed smile. They shared their stories, their laughter, their quiet acts of kindness, offering a refuge from the coldness of my own family. "Poor Anya," Hana, the head cook, would often say, her eyes filled with sympathy. "You deserve so much more than this. One day, you'll leave this place." Old Kenzo, the gardener, would reassure me, his weathered hands patting my shoulder. "You'll marry your prince, and you'll have a life filled with happiness." Their words were a balm to my wounded spirit, a flicker of hope in the darkness of my existence. But deep down, a nagging doubt lingered. Would I ever truly escape the shadow of my past? Would I ever be more than just the forgotten daughter, the invisible sister, the pawn in a game of arranged marriages and societal expectations? The silkscreen door slid open with a barely audible whisper, granting me a glimpse into the forbidden territory of my stepmother's private sitting room. It wasn't nosiness that fueled my eavesdropping, but a prickling sense of unease that had been simmering for weeks. Mako's giggling, high-pitched and overly sweet, was usually a reliable indicator of impending trouble. "Mother, you're brilliant!" Mako's voice, a sugary concoction laced with cunning, drifted through the paper-thin walls. He barely even glanced at Anya. He was completely captivated by me. My stepmother's low chuckle sent a shiver down my spine. "Of course he was, darling. You have a certain charm that Anya lacks, a certain playfulness." Playfulness? More like a calculated performance designed to ensnare Hiroki in her web of manufactured charm. I'd witnessed Mako's accidental encounters with Hiroki during his infrequent visits, the fluttering eyelashes, the coy smiles. the seemingly innocent touches that lingered a little too long. My own interactions with Hiroki were stiff, formal affairs, dictated by tradition and shadowed by my stepmother's watchful gaze. He's practically smitten, Mako continued, her voice dripping with smug satisfaction. He even asked father if he could take me to the summer festival next month. A wave of nausea washed over me. The summer festival was a tradition, a chance for betrothed couples to spend time together, to solidify their bond before the impending wedding. It was supposed to be my chance to get to know Hiroki, to forge a connection beyond the arranged marriage contract. But now, it seemed, Mako was intent on stealing that opportunity, just as she'd stolen countless others. My stepmother's voice, laced with a chilling ambition, shattered my thoughts. Patience, Mako. We must be subtle. Plant the seeds of doubt, nurture his infatuation, and then we'll make our move. Their words hung in the air, a venomous cloud threatening to suffocate me. My carefully constructed composure crumbled, replaced by a gnawing fear. They were plotting against me, manipulating Hiroki, scheming to steal my future. And I, trapped in my cage, felt utterly powerless to stop them. My internal monologue, usually a source of sarcastic amusement, was now a frantic chorus of anxiety. What are they planning? I thought, my mind racing. How can I stop them? Will father believe me if I tell him? The doubts gnawed at me, fueling my growing sense of insecurity. I was a pawn in their game, a piece to be moved and discarded at their whim. Hiroki's next visit was a torture. I watched as Mako fluttered around him, her laughter echoing through the house, her touch lingering on his arm. Hiroki, blinded by her manufactured charm, barely spared me a glance. My attempts to engage him in conversation were met with polite indifference, his eyes already searching for Mako's captivating presence. Desperation clawed at me, a suffocating feeling of helplessness. I had to do something, anything, to stop this charade. But what? Confront Hiroki? He'd probably dismiss me as a jealous, bitter sister. Appeal to my father? He was too preoccupied with his business dealings to notice the machinations unfolding beneath his own roof. In a moment of reckless desperation, I confronted my stepmother. "I know what you're doing," I hissed, my voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. "You're trying to steal my fiancé?" Oh. She merely arched a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, her lips curving into a condescending smile. "Don't be ridiculous, Anya. You're imagining things." "I heard you," I insisted, my voice rising. "I heard you and Mako talking about Hiroki. You're manipulating him, turning him against me." "And what if I am?" she challenged, her eyes glinting with a chilling amusement. "What are you going to do about it?" The question hung in the air, a stark reminder of my powerlessness. I had no proof, no allies, no voice in this twisted game of manipulation and deceit. My stepmother, sensing my defeat, dismissed me with a wave of her hand. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have more important matters to attend to." I retreated to my room, my heart heavy with despair. The walls of my cage seemed to close in on me, suffocating me with their suffocating reality. I was trapped, a prisoner of my own family's ambition, my future hanging precariously in the balance. The unexpected clang of the gate bell echoed through the house, disrupting the usual rhythm of hushed footsteps and polite whispers. My stepmother, ever the picture of serene elegance, emerged from her chambers, her face a mask of practiced surprise. "Hiroki-san?" she exclaimed, her voice a blend of confusion and delight. "What a pleasant surprise! To what do we owe this unexpected visit?" Hiroki, clad in a finely tailored suit that spoke of wealth and privilege, bowed respectfully. "My apologies for the unannounced visit, Mrs. Sakamoto," he said, his voice smooth and polite. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I might pay Anya a visit." My stepmother's lips curved into a knowing smile. Of course, Anya would be delighted. However, she's currently occupied with some household chores. Please come in and have some tea while you wait. Occupied with household chores. Translation, dressed in rags and scrubbing floors. My stepmother, bless her manipulative heart, had orchestrated this entire encounter, ensuring I'd be presented to Hiroki in the most unflattering light possible. A subtle reminder of my lowly status, a stark contrast to Mako's carefully cultivated image of refined elegance. I emerged from the kitchen, my hands red and raw from scrubbing pots, my hair pulled back in a messy bun, my simple cotton dress a far cry from the exquisite silk kimonos Mako favored. Hiroki's eyes widened in surprise, a flicker of something akin to disgust crossing his features. Anya, he said, his voice laced with disbelief, is that really you? Hiroki-san? I stammered, my cheeks burning with shame. I didn't expect you. Clearly, he said, his gaze sweeping over my disheveled appearance. I apologize for interrupting your chores. Before I could respond, Mako materialized at his side, a vision of ethereal beauty in a flowing lavender kimono, her hair adorned with delicate silk flowers. Hiroki-san, she exclaimed, her voice a melodious chirp. How wonderful to see you. Anya, darling, why don't you finish your chores later? Hiroki-san has come to visit you. The emphasis on you was a subtle jab, a reminder of my supposed inferiority. Hiroki, oblivious to the undercurrents of manipulation swirling around him, smiled at Mako. Thank you, Mako-san. You're always so thoughtful. Mako, ever the picture of innocent charm, batted her eyelashes and offered Hiroki a cup of tea. Please make yourself comfortable. I'll just be a moment. She glided away, leaving me standing there, feeling like a clumsy servant in the presence of royalty. Hiroki's gaze returned to me, his eyes now filled with a mixture of disappointment and disdain. I didn't realize you were so involved in the household chores, he said, his voice carefully neutral. It's my duty to help, I mumbled, wishing I could disappear into the floorboards. Of course, he said, his tone laced with a hint of condescension. It's admirable that you're so diligent. Mako returned, her presence a fragrant cloud of jasmine and subtle manipulation. She engaged Hiroki in a lively conversation, her laughter echoing through the room, her every gesture designed to captivate and enthrall. I watched from the sidelines, my attempts to join the conversation brushed aside, my voice drowned out by their carefully orchestrated performance. Hiroki's eyes barely met mine, his attention focused solely on Mako. He seemed oblivious to the fact that I was the one he was supposed to be courting, the one he was promised to, the one whose future was hanging precariously in the balance. As the afternoon wore on, Hiroki's disappointment grew, his initial surprise replaced by a palpable disgust. He excused himself abruptly, citing a sudden engagement. Thank you for the tea, Anya, he said, his voice devoid of warmth, and thank you, Mako-san, for your charming company. He bowed curtly and departed, leaving me standing there, my heart shattered by his rejection. Mako, her mission accomplished, flashed me a triumphant smile. Don't worry, Anya, she purred, her voice laced with mock sympathy. I'm sure you'll find someone suitable, eventually. I retreated to my room, the weight of their betrayal crushing my spirit. Hiroki's rejection was more than just a personal blow. It was a symbol of my own insignificance, a confirmation of my stepmother's venomous words. I was nothing more than a servant, a pawn in their game, a burden to be disposed of. And as I sank onto my bed, tears streaming down my face, I knew that my life, my future, my very identity, was slipping away from me. The air crackled with tension as Mr. Tanaka, Hiroki's father, sat across from my own father in the formal receiving room. I stood behind a silk screen, a silent observer to the unfolding drama, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. The whispers I'd overheard, the manipulations I'd witnessed, were about to culminate in a devastating blow. Mr. Sakamoto, Hiroki's father began, his voice grave. I must apologize for my son's disrespectful behavior. My father, ever the stoic patriarch, inclined his head. I am unsure of what you speak, Mr. Tanaka. Hiroki has always been a welcome guest in our home. Indeed, Mr. Tanaka continued, but it seems my son has developed affections for another. The words hung in the air, a poisoned arrow aimed directly at my heart. I knew what was coming, yet I clung to a desperate hope that perhaps, just perhaps, my father would defend me, would uphold the sanctity of our long-standing agreement. Mako, Mr. Tanaka said, the name a sharp blade twisting in my gut. He has requested that I approach you with a proposal. He wishes to break the engagement with Anya and seek Mako's hand in marriage instead. My father's composure faltered, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. But the arrangement, uh, I understand the inconvenience, Mr. Tanaka interrupted smoothly, but surely a simple switch within the family wouldn't disrupt the alliance between our houses. Mako is a fine young woman, and Hiroki is deeply smitten with her. Smitten with her fabricated charm, her manipulative schemes, her blatant disregard for my feelings. My hands clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms. I wanted to scream, to rage against the injustice, to remind them that I was a person, not a bargaining chip to be traded at their convenience. I will need to consider this, my father stammered, his eyes darting towards the screen, as if sensing my presence. Of course, Mr. Tanaka said, his voice oozing with practiced diplomacy. But I urge you to consider the benefits. A strong alliance with the Tanaka family, a happy union for our children. It is the most logical solution. Logical for them, perhaps, but for me, it was a betrayal, a humiliation, a crushing blow to my already fragile sense of self-worth. I couldn't bear to listen any longer. I fled the room, my footsteps echoing through the silent hallways, tears streaming down my face. I burst into my father's study, my voice raw with desperation. "Father, please!" I begged, falling to my knees. "Don't let them do this to me. Don't let them break our agreement." My father, his face etched with a mixture of pity and annoyance, looked down at me. "Anya, this is for the best. The Tanaka family is powerful, influential. This alliance is important for our future." "But what about my future?" I cried, my voice cracking. "What about my happiness?" "Happiness?" he scoffed. "Duty and honor are more important than fleeting emotions. You will learn to accept this, Anya. It is the way of our world." The way of their world, perhaps, a world where women were pawns, where their feelings were irrelevant, where their destinies were dictated by men blinded by tradition and ambition. I stumbled out of the study, my legs weak, my vision blurred. My world, once a gilded cage, now felt like a suffocating prison. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't bear the weight of their betrayal. I ran through the manicured gardens, past the koi ponds and cherry blossom trees, my bare feet pounding against the stone paths. I ran until I reached the edge of the estate, the imposing gates a symbol of my confinement. I couldn't stay here, couldn't bear to face the pitying glances of the servants, the triumphant smirks of my stepmother and Mako. I pushed open the gates, stumbling out into the bustling street, the noise and chaos a welcome distraction from the turmoil within me. Tears streamed down my face, blurring the bright lights and unfamiliar faces. I didn't know where I was going, didn't care. All I knew was that I had to escape, to run away from the pain, the betrayal, the suffocating reality of my shadowed existence. The screech of tires pierced through the fog of my despair, a jarring sound that snapped me back to reality. I looked up, blinded by the headlights bearing down on me, a strange sense of detachment washing over me. This was it, I thought, a fitting end to a life that had never truly been mine. A life dictated by tradition, controlled by others. A life where my own desires and dreams had been suffocated by the weight of expectations. Then, darkness. I woke with a gasp, my body jolting upright in bed. Disoriented and confused, I looked around the familiar room, my heart pounding in my chest. Had it been a dream? A nightmare? But the lingering ache in my limbs, the phantom scent of burning rubber in my nostrils, spoke of a reality too vivid to dismiss. I glanced at the clock on my bedside table. 6 a.m. The same time I'd woken up yesterday. The same time my stepmother's shrill voice had pierced through the peaceful silence, summoning me to another day of servitude. But something was different. The air felt charged, the sunlight filtering through the paper screen seemed brighter, the world outside my window thrumming with a newfound vibrancy. Then it hit me. I was back. Back to the beginning, given a second chance, a do-over, a chance to rewrite the script of my life. A wave of exhilaration washed over me, quickly followed by a steely determination. This time, things would be different. This time, I wouldn't be a pawn in their game. This time, I would forge my own destiny. The day unfolded before me, a familiar dance of routines and rituals. I watched as my stepmother, oblivious to my inner turmoil, issued her usual litany of demands. I observed Mako's practiced charm as she flitted around Hiroki, her laughter echoing through the house. I listened to my father's pronouncements on duty and honor, his words now devoid of their usual power to wound. It was as if I were watching a play, the actors oblivious to the fact that I knew the ending. But this time, I wouldn't play my assigned role. This time, I wouldn't be the silent, obedient daughter, the invisible sister, the forgotten bride. This time, I would fight back. When Hiroki's father arrived, his proposal echoing through the formal receiving room, I didn't cower behind the screen. I stepped forward, my voice clear and steady. "Father, I refuse." The room fell silent, shock and disbelief etched on every face. My father's eyes widened in alarm. My stepmother's lips curled into a sneer. Hiroki's father's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Anya, what is the meaning of this?" my father demanded, his voice laced with displeasure. "I will not be a pawn in your game," I declared, my gaze unwavering. "I will not marry a man who sees me as nothing more than a household servant. I will not be traded like a commodity to solidify your alliances." "You dare defy me?" my father roared, his face contorted with rage. "I dare to choose my own destiny," I retorted, my voice filled with a newfound strength. "I demand the opportunity to leave this house, to pursue my education, to create a life of my own choosing." My stepmother scoffed. "Education? What good is education for a woman? Your duty is to marry well and bear children." "My duty is to myself," I countered, "and I will not be bound by your outdated traditions and suffocating expectations." The argument raged, my voice echoing through the once silent house. I fought for my freedom, for my right to choose, for my chance to be more than just a shadow in their world. And in the end, my father, worn down by my persistence and perhaps a flicker of guilt, reluctantly agreed. "Very well, Anya," he said, his voice heavy with resignation. "You may go, but do not expect any support from this family. Only your education expenses will be covered. You are on your own." "I wouldn't have it any other way," I said, a triumphant smile curving my lips. And as I turned to leave the room, a flicker of hope ignited in my eyes, a promise of a new beginning, a new life, a new Anya. The train screeched to a halt, its brakes groaning in protest as it disgorged a wave of passengers onto the platform. I stepped out into the bustling chaos of the city, my senses assaulted by a symphony of sights and sounds. Towering skyscrapers pierced the sky, their glass facades reflecting the dazzling neon lights that illuminated the streets. Cars honked impatiently, their drivers weaving through the throngs of pedestrians with reckless abandon. The air crackled with energy, a stark contrast to the hushed serenity of the Sakamoto estate. "This is it," I murmured, my heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "This is where I start again." I hailed a taxi, my carefully rehearsed instructions tumbling out in a torrent of nervous energy. "Keio University, please," I said, clutching my worn leather bag close to my chest. The driver, a gruff man with a weathered face and a cigarette dangling from his lips, grunted in acknowledgement and sped off into the urban jungle. Keio University. The name alone evoked a sense of prestige, a world away from the stifling confines of my former life. I'd spent countless hours poring over brochures, imagining myself strolling through the hallowed halls, surrounded by brilliant minds and endless possibilities. And now, here I was, ready to claim my place in this new world. The university campus was a haven of tranquility amidst the urban chaos. Leafy trees lined the pathways, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. Students, their faces alight with youthful energy, hurried to and fro, their conversations a vibrant mix of languages and ideas. I took a deep breath, savoring the intoxicating scent of freedom and possibility. Enrolling was a surprisingly straightforward process. No questions about my family background, no expectations of arranged marriages, no whispers of societal obligations. Just a simple form, a tuition fee, and a student ID card that felt like a passport to a new life. "Welcome to Keio University, Anya-san," the registrar said, her smile warm and welcoming. "I have a feeling you're going to do great things here." I thanked her, my heart swelling with gratitude. For the first time in my life, I felt seen, not as a Sakamoto heiress, not as a forgotten daughter, but simply as Anya, a student with the potential to shape her own destiny. My classes were a revelation. Economics, philosophy, literature, subjects that had been deemed frivolous and unnecessary in my former life were now explored with passionate intensity. My professors, renowned scholars, and industry leaders challenged my assumptions, expanded my horizons, and ignited a thirst for knowledge that had long been suppressed. Anya-san, your insights are quite impressive. Professor Ito, my economics professor, remarked after a particularly lively debate on the merits of free market capitalism. You have a sharp mind and a unique perspective. I blushed, surprised by the unexpected praise. Thank you, Professor, I stammered, my confidence still fragile. Don't underestimate yourself, Anya-san, he encouraged. You have the potential to make a real difference in the world. His words resonated, fueling my growing ambition. I wasn't just here to escape my past, I was here to build a future where my intelligence and determination would be my greatest assets. I formed friendships with my fellow students, a diverse group of individuals who challenged my perspectives and broadened my horizons. There was Hana, the fiery activist, passionate about social justice and environmental sustainability, Kenji the tech whiz, whose fingers flew across his keyboard with lightning speed, and Sakura, the aspiring artist, whose canvases exploded with color and emotion. We debated, we explored, we laughed, we cried, we supported each other through the challenges and triumphs of university life. Anya, you've changed so much, Hana remarked one evening, as we were sharing a late-night snack in our dorm room. You're so much more confident. I'm still finding my way, I admitted, but I'm definitely not the same girl who arrived here a few months ago. You're a force to be reckoned with, Anya, Sakura chimed in, her eyes sparkling with admiration. And we're here to cheer you on every step of the way. Their words were a balm to my soul, a confirmation that I was on the right path. I was shedding the timid, obedient persona that had been forced upon me, embracing my own voice, my own power, my own identity. As the semester drew to a close, I found myself standing on the rooftop of my dorm building, overlooking the sprawling cityscape. The lights twinkled below, a vast expanse of possibilities stretching out before me. I had escaped the gilded cage, and I was finally free to soar. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready for it. I was Anya, and I was determined to make my mark on the world. University was my proving ground. No longer confined by stifling expectations or forced servitude, I thrived. My business courses were like a playground for my intellect, the complex theories and strategic frameworks resonating with a clarity I hadn't known I possessed. Professors who had initially dismissed me as another privileged heiress soon realized their mistake. My analyses were sharp, my solutions innovative, my presentations delivered with a quiet confidence that belied my years. Anya, you have a natural talent for this, Professor Nakamura, my strategy professor, remarked after I dismantled a particularly convoluted case study with ruthless efficiency. You see the bigger picture, the underlying patterns, the potential for disruption. I've had some unconventional training, I replied with a wry smile, thinking of my stepmother's endless schemes and Mako's manipulative tactics. Life in the Sakamoto household was a masterclass in strategy, whether I wanted it or not. He chuckled. Well, whatever the source of your skills, you're a force to be reckoned with. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I took his words to heart, embracing every opportunity to hone my abilities. I joined the university's investment club, where my calculated risks and strategic foresight yielded impressive returns. I led the debate team to victory after victory, my arguments as sharp as a samurai's sword. I even organized a student-run consulting project, helping local businesses navigate the complexities of the modern marketplace. With each success, my confidence grew. The timid girl I once was fading into a distant memory. I was no longer afraid to speak my mind, to challenge the status quo, to assert my own vision. The shackles of my past were loosening, replaced by a newfound sense of self-belief and ambition. Anya, you're an inspiration, Hana confided one evening as we were poring over textbooks in the library. You've come so far, overcome so much. It's incredible to witness. I couldn't have done it without you, I replied, squeezing her hand. You and the others have been my rock, my support system, my family. We're proud of you, Anya, Kenji added, his usually stoic face softened by a genuine smile. You're going to change the world. Their words fueled my determination. I wasn't just doing this for myself. I was doing it for all the forgotten daughters, the invisible sisters, the silenced voices yearning to be heard. I was proving that tradition and expectations couldn't confine a spirit determined to soar. Graduation day arrived, a culmination of years of hard work and transformation. As I walked across the stage, diploma in hand, a wave of pride washed over me. I'd done it. I'd proven them all wrong. I was Anya Sakamoto, no longer defined by my family name, but by my own accomplishments, my own ambitions, my own unwavering spirit. Job offers flooded in, prestigious firms vying for my talent. I weighed my options carefully, ultimately choosing a coveted position at one of the country's top consultancy firms. It was a challenging role, demanding long hours and unwavering dedication, but it was also a chance to make a real impact, to shape the future of businesses and industries. This is just the beginning, I thought as I signed the employment contract, my signature bold and confident. The world is waiting, and I'm ready to conquer it. My first few months at the firm were a whirlwind of high-stakes projects, demanding clients, and cutthroat competition. But I thrived on the pressure, my strategic mind dissecting problems with laser-like precision, my solutions innovative and effective. I earned the respect of my colleagues, the admiration of my superiors, and the grudging acknowledgement of those who had initially underestimated me. And then, one evening, the phone rang. It was my father. His voice, once strong and commanding, now held a tremor of age and vulnerability. Anya, he said, I need your help. The family business, it's not what it used to be. I'm getting old, and I need someone I can trust. Someone with your sharp mind and strategic vision. A flicker of surprise, then a wave of satisfaction washed over me. The man who had once dismissed my ambitions, who had sacrificed my happiness for the sake of tradition and alliances, was now turning to me for help. The tables had turned, the power dynamic shifted. And as I agreed to his request, a hint of a smile played on my lips. This was more than just a business opportunity. It was a chance to reclaim my legacy, to honor my mother's memory, to prove that the forgotten daughter had finally found her voice, her power, her place in the world. Stepping back into the Sakamoto estate was like entering a time capsule. The meticulously manicured gardens, the hushed whispers of the servants, the lingering scent of incense and old money, it was all a stark reminder of the life I had left behind. Yet, this time, I returned not as the timid, forgotten daughter, but as Anya Sakamoto, the woman who had defied expectations and forged her own path to success. My father, his hair now streaked with silver, his shoulders stooped with age, greeted me with a hesitant smile. Anya, he said, his voice raspy with disuse. Welcome home. Father, I replied, bowing respectfully. It's good to be back. He led me to his study, the familiar scent of old books and aged wood filling my senses. We sat across from each other, the silence punctuated only by the gentle ticking of the antique clock on the mantelpiece. I need your help, Anya, he said, his voice heavy with concern. The Sakamoto Corporation, it's facing challenges I no longer have the strength to overcome. Competition is fierce, profits are dwindling, and I fear I've lost my touch. I've been following the company's performance, Father, I said, my voice calm and assured. I have some ideas that might help. And so began my reintegration into the family business. I analyzed financial statements, dissected market trends, and identified areas for improvement with a ruthless efficiency that surprised even myself. My father, initially skeptical, gradually warmed to my suggestions, his eyes widening with admiration as I presented innovative solutions and strategic plans. You have your mother's mind, Anya, he remarked one afternoon, a wistful smile gracing his lips. Sharp, insightful, and unafraid to challenge the status quo. His words were a balm to my soul, a validation of my hard-won skills, and a reminder of the legacy I was striving to uphold. I wasn't just doing this for my father, for the Sakamoto Corporation. I was doing it for my mother, for the woman who had instilled in me a love of learning and a thirst for knowledge. My stepmother and Mako watched my ascent with thinly veiled resentment. Their whispers followed me through the hallways, their eyes narrowed with envy as my influence grew, but their petty attempts to undermine me were no match for my newfound confidence and strategic brilliance. "She's trying to steal everything," Mako hissed to her mother one evening, her voice laced with venom. "Let her," my stepmother replied, her eyes glinting with a calculating light. "She'll soon learn that the Sakamoto Corporation is more than just numbers and strategies. It's about connections, alliances, and knowing your place." But they underestimated me. I wasn't just a businesswoman, I was a Sakamoto. I understood the intricacies of tradition, the importance of relationships, the delicate balance of power that held our world together, and I was determined to use my knowledge not to manipulate and control, but to lead with integrity and vision. As my father's health declined, I took on more and more responsibility, effectively running the company while he retreated further into his memories and regrets. I negotiated deals, secured partnerships, and streamlined operations with a decisiveness that earned me the respect of employees and the grudging admiration of my rivals. "Anya Sakamoto is a force to be reckoned with," I overheard one of my father's old advisors remark to another. "She has the potential to lead this company to greater heights than we ever imagined." Their words fueled my determination. I wasn't just reclaiming my legacy, I was shaping it, molding it into something that would honor my mother's memory and secure the future of the Sakamoto Corporation for generations to come. And then, one cold winter morning, my father passed away peacefully in his sleep. The news sent shockwaves through the family, but I remained steadfast, my grief tempered by a sense of duty and resolve. I had promised my father that I would protect the Sakamoto legacy, and I intended to keep my word. The reading of the will was a tense affair. My stepmother and Mako, their faces etched with anticipation, sat across from me, their eyes gleaming with avarice. But their hopes were dashed as the lawyer read my father's final wishes. "To my eldest daughter, Anya Sakamoto," he read, his voice echoing through the silent room, "I bequeath the entirety of my estate, including the Sakamoto Corporation. She has proven herself to be a capable and trustworthy leader, and I have no doubt that she will guide our family business to continued success." Oh, a collective gasp filled the room. My stepmother's face contorted with rage. Mako's eyes widened in disbelief. They had underestimated me, dismissed me, tried to manipulate me. And now, I was the one in control, the one holding the reins of power, the one who would determine their fate. As I looked at their stunned faces, a flicker of triumph crossed my features. I had reclaimed my legacy, not through scheming or manipulation, but through hard work, intelligence, and unwavering determination. I was Anya Sakamoto, the head of the Sakamoto Corporation, and I was ready to lead our family into a new era of prosperity and success. Taking the helm of the Sakamoto Corporation was like stepping onto a high wire without a net. The stakes were high, the pressure immense, and the eyes of the business world were fixed on my every move. My stepmother and Mako, their faces etched with a mixture of resentment and disbelief, watched from the sidelines, waiting for me to stumble, to falter, to prove them right in their assumptions about my supposed incompetence. But I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I'd spent years honing my skills, proving my worth, and building a foundation of knowledge and experience that they couldn't undermine. I navigated the complexities of board meetings, negotiated deals with shrewd investors, and spearheaded innovative projects with a confidence that surprised even myself. The whispers of doubt that had once plagued me were silenced by the roar of my own ambition and the unwavering support of my team, many of whom had witnessed my transformation from timid servant to capable leader. "Anya-san, your vision for the company is truly inspiring," Mr. Sato, my father's old advisor, remarked one afternoon, his eyes gleaming with respect. "You have a way of seeing the potential where others see only obstacles." "I learned from the best, Sato-san," I replied, a hint of a smile playing on my lips. My father, despite his flaws, was a master strategist, and I intend to honor his legacy by leading this company to even greater heights. My internal monologue was a symphony of determination and quiet triumph. This is my domain now, I thought as I surveyed the bustling office floor from my corner office window, and I won't let anyone, not even my own family, stand in my way. The power that came with my position was intoxicating. It wasn't just about the money, the influence, the social standing. It was about the ability to shape my own destiny, to make decisions that impacted not just my own life, but the lives of countless others. It was about proving to the world and to myself that I was more than just a forgotten daughter, a discarded bride, an invisible sister. I was Anya Sakamoto, the CEO, the leader, the woman who had risen from the ashes of her past to claim her rightful place in the world. Meanwhile, Meiko's carefully constructed fairy tale was crumbling. Hiroki, blinded by her charm and manipulated by her mother, had married her, only to discover that beauty and social graces weren't a substitute for intelligence and competence. His family's business, once a pillar of stability, was facing financial turmoil, their investments failing, their reputation tarnished by a series of poor decisions. Hiroki, desperate to salvage his family's fortune, found himself in a predicament he never could have imagined. He stood before me, his head bowed, his pride swallowed by desperation. "Anya," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "I need your help." The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. The man who had once dismissed me as a lowly servant, who had chosen my sister over me, was now begging for my assistance. The tables had turned, the power dynamic irrevocably shifted, and as I looked at him, a flicker of something satisfaction, pity, crossed my features. "What kind of help, Hiroki-san?" I asked, my voice cool and composed. He hesitated, his eyes darting around my office, as if searching for an escape route. "Financial assistance," he finally mumbled. "My family, we're facing some difficulties. We need a loan, a substantial one, to tide us over." I leaned back in my chair, my gaze unwavering. "And why would I help you, Hiroki-san?" I asked, my voice laced with a hint of steel. "After all, you made it quite clear that you had no interest in associating with someone like me." He flinched, his cheeks flushing with shame. I made a mistake, Anya," he stammered. "I was blinded by, by my sister's beauty, by your mother's manipulations." I finished for him, my voice devoid of sympathy. "Or perhaps you simply underestimated me, dismissed me as inconsequential." He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. "Don't bother with excuses, Hiroki-san. The past is the past. The question is, what are you going to do now?" He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of desperation and regret. And in that moment, I knew that I held his fate, and the fate of his family, in my hands. Hiroki's desperate plea hung in the air, heavy with the weight of regret and desperation. A flicker of triumph, sharp and vindictive, coursed through me. This was it, the moment I had secretly craved, the opportunity to savor his humiliation, to revel in his downfall. I could crush him, deny his request, watch as his family's legacy crumbled before his eyes. It would be justice, wouldn't it? Revenge for the years of being overlooked, dismissed, and discarded. But as I looked at him, his shoulders slumped, his eyes filled with a pain that mirrored my own past suffering. A different feeling stirred within me. Compassion. Not for him, not exactly, but for Meiko, my sister, the girl who, despite her flaws and manipulative tendencies, was still bound to me by blood and a shared history. And for my father, the man who, despite his blindness and adherence to tradition, had ultimately granted me the freedom to forge my own path. "Hiroki-san," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "do you remember the day you came to our house? The day you saw me scrubbing floors in ragged clothes?" He flinched, his cheeks flushing with shame. I do, Anya, and I am truly sorry for it." "Do you remember the look of disgust in your eyes?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "The disdain in your voice as you addressed me, the girl you were supposed to marry?" He opened his mouth to speak, but I silenced him with a wave of my hand. "Do you remember the day your father came to break our engagement? The day my own father agreed to cast me aside like a broken toy?" His silence was answer enough. The memories hung heavy in the air, a testament to his betrayal, his arrogance, his complete disregard for my feelings. My internal monologue raged, a battleground of conflicting emotions. Revenge whispered promises of satisfaction, of finally settling the score. But compassion urged me to consider the bigger picture, the consequences of my actions, the potential for healing and redemption. I thought of my mother, her gentle smile, her unwavering belief in kindness and forgiveness. I thought of the servants, their quiet empathy, their unwavering support during my darkest hours. I thought of the woman I had become, the leader, the strategist, the woman who had risen above the pettiness of her past to forge her own destiny. And in that moment, I made my choice. Hiroki-san, I said, my voice now softened by a newfound understanding. I will help you. Not for you, but for my sister, for my family, for the legacy that I am now entrusted to protect. His eyes widened in disbelief, tears welling up. Anya, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, I said, a small smile gracing my lips. Just learn from your mistakes. And remember, true strength lies not in revenge, but in forgiveness and the unwavering belief in one's own ability to rise above adversity. He bowed deeply, his gratitude evident in his trembling voice. Thank you, Anya. I will never forget this. As he left my office, a sense of peace settled over me. I had faced my demons, conquered my desire for revenge, and chosen a path that honored my values and my vision for the future. I had learned that forgiveness wasn't about condoning past wrongs, but about freeing myself from the shackles of bitterness and resentment. And as I looked out at the city lights, a symbol of the endless possibilities that lay ahead, I knew that I had finally found true redemption, not in the downfall of others, but in the triumph of my own spirit.